You've been told that you can have it all, but no one told you how to survive it. If you're a business owner, a parent, or more likely, both, you already know the juggle is real. You're pulled in every direction, and sometimes it feels like you're dropping balls that you didn't even know you were holding. But what if the problem isn't that you're doing too much? What if it's that you've been told the wrong way to do it? This isn't about chasing a perfect balance, it's about creating a rhythm that works for you and your life, not someone else's. This conversation today is for the ambitious, the overwhelmed, the burned out, and the brave. It's for the ones building a business and a family and still trying to keep a sense of self somewhere in there. Over the next hour, you're going to hear real practical strategies for taking back control of your energy, your time, and your priorities. You'll learn how to create systems that support your goals, not sabotage them, and how to stop doing everything alone. So if you've ever felt like you're failing at balance, this is for you, because it's not about doing it all. It's about doing what matters most. Let's get into it.
It's not comparing how Jane and John do it down the street. It isn't comparing yourself to how your best mates do it, right? Because we're all individual, and it's okay to do things our way.
Stop worrying about how you're going to be perceived and do what's necessary for your family's happiness and your business's success.
Sometimes it feels like 50 balls up in the air and you feel as if you're catching none. You know what? That's just being human.
At the end of it all, you've only got two people in your life that you ever need to impress. And that is 8-year-old you with all their dreams and aspirations and hopes for the future, and 80-year-old you who's lived it all.
Everything to me is energy. That's what life is all about, you know. And when you're a busy professional and you've got kids, people tend to think, well, I just need more time.
Life doesn't have to be this thing that we wish away until it's too late and we can't get it back. This conversation is long overdue. How to juggle parenting, business, and sanity without constantly feeling like things are out of control. If you're here, chances are you're either a business owner, a parent, or pretty much like most of us, both, let's be honest. And just being a parent on its own feels like you run 2 full-time jobs. Like I've made the leap out of corporate to run my own business. And I say to my wife all the time, like, I don't know how people can work a full 9 till 5 Monday to Friday and have kids at the same time. I've got the flexibility of my own business and it's hard enough as it is without 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. And like, you know, I don't even get a lunch break half the time, right? So I'm Paul, if you haven't met me before, hello. And my business, Javelin, is around helping business owners efficiently and effectively extract the value out of the ideas in your head. So lots of people want to convey value to their customers. We help them download that into a video. We repurpose every moment of that to make sure that the value you have gets in front of your audience. You don't have to do it. You can get back on with running your business. I do it really effectively and efficiently because that's what I've learned to do over a period of years, and it works really nicely. That's why I wanted to team up with today's guest, Doris, because I do the efficiency part in the business, but I don't really have the credibility and the experience of doing that from a parenting perspective. So I'll hand over to Doris. And Doris, if you'd introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
Yay. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. So this is a topic I'm really passionate about, right? You know, I've seen so many parents, especially those who are high achieving, you know, career driven parents, kind of burn out because they're trying to do all. Right. But the truth is kind of, you know, when we talk about this through the session is that balance doesn't actually mean splitting everything 50-50. And hopefully throughout this conversation, we're going to show you how you can integrate your work and family life in a way that actually works for you.
Fantastic. So it's worth calling out at this point that I met Doris through my membership in The Collective, which is run by Heidi Medina. So Heidi, special shout out to you. Thank you very much for bringing together such a wonderful bunch of people. And when I met Doris in some of the networking sessions that we had there, we were very clearly aligned. We're the gobshites of the group, pardon my French, but yeah, we're the gobshites. And we're both extremely passionate and energetic about what we do. So I'm going to be honest up front, right? Not many people will be able to watch this whole episode at one go and take it all in, because there's going to be so much value thrown at you during the course of this. But practicing what we preach, this webinar is going to then get repurposed. We're going to package it up into micro moments, clips, and we're going to put it out across the social media profiles, both Doris and myself, business profiles. So follow us, give us a follow on LinkedIn, give us a follow on YouTube. You'll see the moments from this in bite-sized amounts that you can probably manage to mentally cogitate on a bit easier than real value that we're going to spitball at you really fast and hard here. It will really resonate with those of you who are more on the energetic side of things. I take that into account. So the first talking point that we're going to address today is the myth of balance. As Doris said, like, it doesn't mean, balance doesn't mean that you have to work 50% of the time and be a parent 50% of the time, or whatever that looks like. And I think it's safe to say the key is integration rather than perfection, right? How can I make this work? Forget about the shoulds. Shoulds are dangerous, right? What works for you in your specific circumstances, your life, your routine, what commitments you have, and what can you say no to in order to be more present in other things? And the same thing can be applied to content creation, which is my side of this, right? A lot of people get into business because they've got a fantastic business idea, they've got really passionate about people, and then realize that they need to market themselves. And a big part of marketing in 2025 is social media, LinkedIn, video content, which in itself becomes a full-time job, a job that you didn't sign up for. So for me, I help people get into the habit of batch recording things, batch creating their content, and then repurposing that so that, one 20-minute video might give you the posts and short clips and quotes images and audiograms and whatever else you want to do with it to last you 4 to 6 weeks. Job done, efficient, nice, all themed, all on the same lines. The main thing that I see people holding back on is they come to me and they ask, what, Paul, what should I get in place first? I need to build a website and I've got to get my messaging right. My LinkedIn profile's got to be right. And I want to get video done and I want to get content out there. What do I do first? And my honest answer is one thing at a time, right? Out of those things, I'd highly recommend you build it before you need it. Get your personal brand out there. Start telling people who you are, even if the follow-on steps aren't perfect yet. Get in front of them and start building familiarity so that for the perfect moment, it won't arrive. And a lot of people come to me and tell me they'll come back in 6 months. And I look back on their profile in 6 months' time and they've done nothing with it because they're still waiting for that perfect moment. Done is better than perfect. And that removes so much time suck from most business owners as well, because we can be playing about with websites and pitch decks and things, and we spend time doing that and forgetting to actually do the bit that we enjoy. So that's where I sit in. And me personally, right, like I run technically 1.5 businesses at the moment. Right? Like I'm not going to talk Doris knows that's a world away from where I am, and it's going to muddy the waters. But I've got 1.5 businesses. I've got a 7-year-old son who does football, and he trains 4 days a week. I've got a 1.5-year-old who goes to swim classes. I've got my wife in the business, and I set out from the beginning to do a 4-day week. I started on a 5-day week, and I went, do you know what? Why am I working Fridays? It's my business. I'm efficient. I'm effective. Why do I see Fridays as a business as a day that has to be business? Can I give that back to my family? And I made a choice to give it back to my family and view it from a different viewpoint, in that I have Fridays as a family day. And if I choose to do some work on it, then that is okay. But it is primarily a family day. Just like, the rest of the week, Monday to Thursday, is primarily a business day where I do some family thing. But the important thing for me is that through all of this, my content is consistently going out there because I batch produce it efficiently and effectively, and I don't have to worry about it. It's part of my routine. I do it once, do it right, do it to I wouldn't say I do it to an extremely professional level. It's probably better than most people get to because I do it full time. For me, it's forcing my business into that 4-day week helps me be more efficient when I am at work, because the pressure's on almost to get it done. Like I know I've only got 4 days, so I need to be more, I need to compress what I do into those 4 days. Whereas if I'm work for 5 days, and I know I've got 5 days to do it, and I'll take a bit more time with things, and I'll not do things as quickly or as fast or efficiently, and it takes the pressure off me a little bit. I like that pressure on. That's not for everyone, but that's an example of how I incorporate my parenting with my business, with efficiency, with my content. Doris, what's your take on parenting side?
Yeah, you know what? There's so many parallels, right? And people come in with this view that work is work and life is life, and we've got to keep them separate, right? How can that truly be when we've only got one body, one brain, right? One heart, right? We're a whole, right? Just one of us. So we can't really split. And if you've got a really shit day at work, right? That's kind of leach into, your family life, and you've got to be a bit short with the kids, right? And similar to you, Paul, I've got a boy at 12 and a daughter at 10 and a half. So, it is, this is where balance comes in. It's like, 9 to 5, I'm only focused at work. And then after work, that's got to be kids' time. When that's sometimes the most frantic time of the day, right? Because you've got to have dinner ready, and you've got to, kids' bath time, and then story time, and all of this stuff. And you potentially haven't, seen your spouse for, most of the day, and you got to chat, right? And, what I've seen and the kind of transformation I've gone through is kind of like, because I left corporate, like you, was being really intentional about how I design kind of my life, right? Because it's not the, comparing, it's setting the boundaries. It's not comparing how Jane and John do it down the street, right? It isn't comparing yourself to how your best mates do it, right? Because we're all individual, and it's okay to do things our way. And, that gets you, and the thing is that you don't need to get permission. That's one thing that I've always experienced, that people say, well, no one else around me is doing it, so I don't want to be the oddball that does this, whatever. It's like, this is your life. You've only got one life. Make it however it works for you, right? So when we talk about balance, it is, okay, maybe my husband does the stay home and does all the childcare, right? And I'll do the cooking and the holidays and, and the planning. That's okay, right? Or it is, my husband is the one who's got the, better career with a better pay. Okay, then, but talk to each other, right? Don't just assume, right? We had this little conversation, right? Before we started hit the record button, happy wife, happy life, right? But it's the talk to each other, right? It's that communication to be clear about, hey, what's it you're going to do? What's it what I'm going to do? And what I find is that having that clear communication, so that there is that expectation about who's going to do what, and then be open to changing things out, and changing things out. Because just because we've decided that now, right, before the kids are born, life was going to be, it's going to be very different when the kids are actually here. You've got 2 under 5 or 2 kids, and life changes, right? Because change is all there is. It's having that chat to say, okay, what works now? Okay, what works now is 5 days a week is fine for me, but actually, something's changed in our life, and actually now that needs to be 4 days. How can we make that happen, right? And be open about it, and to say, hey, this is now what works for us, right? Same intention with you, Paul, was that let's come home. I have my own business now. I can dedicate a bit more time with the kids because they're getting the tween, right? So I want to, when they were very little, I wasn't really around that much. I was, 60-hour weeks, right? Kids were in full-time nursery and all this kind of stuff. And that worked because actually when the kids were very young, I didn't really find that the most fulfilling time. They were a bit boring. All they did was cry and poop, and I had to feed, right? And that was, hey, it was great for now. But I was like, my brain is slowly dying in my head. I need some more mental stimulation. And my choice was to go back full-time, right? And I loved it, right? I loved working. And, and that whole, I've only got them kind of an hour and a bit in the morning and kind of 2 hours in the evening. I was like, done, right? Easy, right? But now they're getting older, and, I'm seeing that, over the last kind of 3 years, I've kind of been there more for them, right? So after this session today, I'm going to go out and watch my daughter's football match, right? I never did that when I was in corporate, because I go, it's just sports day. Come on, John, do you really have to go, because I'm missing that, and there was this whole load of guilt around that. But now I'm like, no, this is what I want, right? This is what's going to help me, right? And this is what I'm going to do. And right now, I'm the only full-time parent at home at the moment because my husband has been in hospital. And you know what? It's kind of like, he can't help with anything. Yes, I've got to pick up the slack, but I also know that's not going to be for forever, right? He's doing what he can with his laptop. Great technology, right? That's why technology is great. He has his laptop. He can do paperwork. He can do stuff, right? He just can't be physically here at the moment with us, right? So it's that kind of balance. I could get really upset, right? The poor man didn't expect to end up in hospital, right? And have resentment and guilt and shame. It's like, no, this is what happens. This is what kind of a partnership is, right? And this is where I then say to the kids, so it's like, okay, there's only one parent at the home now, right? How can you help me, right? How can I help you to help me? Because we're a team, right? And especially as they get older, it's a bit difficult, right? Telling a 1.5-year-old that, because their brain is not set in that way yet. But with definitely 7-year-olds, hey, this is now your responsibility, right? Because it's all about, for me, it's growing that resilience, right, in kids so that they can, fall down and bounce right back up and not have that. So it's kind of finding that balance in terms of what is it, not just the chores, not just the work, but really, what is it that I want to leave my kids with, right? And then kind of work that backwards. Okay, what is it that I can give my kids now? And what is it that I can do to, get that balance to make sure that I do spend a bit more time with them, right? So, okay, Saturdays is, so for me now, it's kind of like, okay, anytime after kind of 4:00, I'm done, right? Because I've got to run to the kid childcare, or I've got to sort this out, I've got to do that. But my morning starts at 6:00 in the morning, right? I do a little bit. Then I take an hour and a half out while I sort out the kids for breakfast and to school, right? And then I've got that time from around 8:30 onwards, right, until 4 to do most of my things. But during that time, there's also not just the work, but what is it that I need to ensure that I am recharged, so I show up really energized and motivated to do all the things. Because when you're tired, you can't function as well, right? So that whole balance of it, and it is, sometimes it feels like 50 balls up in the air and you feel as if you're catching none. You know what? That's just being human, and it's okay, right? To have an off day and say, do you know what? Today I'm just not playing. I'm done. And not feel guilty about that, right? It's when you do feel that, it's kind of reflect that back inwards and saying, what is currently happening within my environment, within me, within my family, within my relationships, that's just not quite working, right? That's where you get to play detective in your own life, right? Is that because, actually, I haven't spent enough time with my wife or my husband? Is it because, do you know what? The kids' behavior is, I'm just going to find that time now to go and talk to them. Like you talked about, let's nip it in the butt when it's a small problem, right? When you can sit there before it becomes a massive problem, and then it becomes like this Everest that you've got to climb, right? So all of that, all the you shares, Paul, about work, it's basically parallel, right, with family. And then the beauty of that, how do you integrate that in a way that works for you? And if today I've got to be out because it's a sports day at school, it's going to be a sports day. I can plan that out in a calendar. I can work around that, and it's not a shock. It's all about that bit of preparation, right? What is that I need to do so that you can say, okay, because we all have to get holiday, right? The ideal is going to be able to take 3 or 4 months off a year, right? Spend with the loved ones, spend with families, spend with friends, right? Doing whatever it is that you want to do, right? And not feel as if you've got it, right? So for me, like you, that the whole posting is dispatched for me. I sit there, thought comes in, I write it down, sit down, in a few hours, I know I can do my weekly post in X number of time. I focus that time and do that. When I know that the kids are safely at school, doing whatever it is, I go and slot it in.
I think that leads nicely into the second session, the second part of today's session, which we're going to talk around energy being the key, not the time needed. And I think, you mentioned about energy a couple of minutes back around how you spend your energy, and choosing where you spend your energy is really, really important. And look, let's be honest, I'm talking to you today about my expertise around creating content efficiently, but it equally applies to lots of different business functions, right? Like whatever you're doing, it's about being the most efficient you can be and spending your energy on it in a way that doesn't suck the life out of you. And if it does suck the life out of you, maybe it's not the right choice for you to be doing it. And I know it's not always a choice at the beginning. Sometimes we've just got to get through the early days of running our business or low revenue points to the point where we can afford to bring in other partners or associates to support us in the elements that we find less fun to do, or drain the energy from us, or maybe it's just not our zone of genius, and we need somebody who's more efficient at it to do that. And that's, that's kind of why Doris and I got talking in the first place, is because we share the same mindset. We share the same methods and strategies. It's just that Doris does that more with a parenting hat on and looking outside of the business world in, and I do it from the content perspective, looking out at the business. And they're connected from both ends. But one thing that I made a conscious effort when I left the corporate world was to spend more of my energy on the things that I wanted to do, as opposed to doing things that I should be doing. And that's people, networking, that's business. It's the things in the business, the tasks I do in the business. And I've come to accept that, if I was to employ a marketer to market on my behalf, I've no doubt that they go, "Oh, Paul, you're missing opportunities here, you're missing opportunities there, you should be doing this, you should be doing that." And a lot of the things that they'd suggest that I do, I've already thought about and chose not to do them. Not because I don't think they're effective, but just because I don't think they'd be fun. I wouldn't want to do it, and my brain just wouldn't let me do it as a result. Right? Like I'm ADHD, if you couldn't guess. If it's boring, brain says no. Simple as that. Like, it's not even going to get started on doing it. So I've got to find sometimes that's a battle as well, though, right? Like, it's a blessing sometimes, and sometimes it's a curse, because I need to get stuff done, and I need to get my brain into mode to just get started. And once I do, then I find that I can really go with that. And so the first point that I come to is aligning things like your content creation with where you have the energy to do those things. So content creation, I find, is quite surprisingly, right? It's a creative activity. You've got to have ideas stirring in your head. And sometimes those ideas come outside of work hours. So my advice would be using your email as a to-do list. You've got to come up with a brilliant idea. Instead of rushing off to do it there and then, send yourself it in an email so that you can do it later. Where also that's quite useful for stopping yourself running off chasing shiny objects, as I tend to do. Because I'll come back to that email a day or two later and I'll go, yeah, that just doesn't feel like as good of an idea as it did at the time, and I don't think I should do that. So it gives me that breathing space to think about whether it's a good idea or not. But it allows me to, we talk about recording video. I tend to do it on a Tuesday. Monday, I'm far too busy recovering everything in my business and stopping myself from panicking about my business, because I haven't worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday feels like a bit of a panic until midday, because I've got to do a certain amount of work before I can breathe and feel like I'm okay now. I've caught up on everything. There's no point me trying to record content in amongst that, because it will come across wrong. So Tuesday, I start the day and I feel, right, okay, I'm relaxed. On Monday, I've got everything done. Tuesday, I'm on top of this. I've got a busy diary maybe, but I can get some content recorded in between things, and my brain's there with it. So the beauty of batching things and doing things all at once is that you can do it at the point where in the week, whether it's even on a night or early morning, middle of the day, wherever your energies are, experiment with where's best to do that content. And it might change for you over time, right? It's not always going to be the same. To your point, Doris, like, if your family schedule changes, your work schedule might change to go with it. If I've had a busy Tuesday night, I might not feel like recording content on a Wednesday morning. I might be too tired or just needing to recover. But then also thinking about the things that you do have to do or you choose to do, can you be more efficient at them? And that comes through a couple of different routes, right? So the first thing I'd always recommend everybody do is to systemize what you're doing. Build a worksheet up of each task and break it down step by step to what makes sense for you. Not necessarily click this button, click that button kind of thing, but what are the things that you do for that task, and write them down on a spreadsheet so you can tick them off if you want to. Most people probably will never look at that spreadsheet again for a while because you've done it once, but it helps you understand what steps you're taking. And if you ever decide to ask somebody else to do it for you, you've got a starting point. It also gives you a visual overlay of like, how much am I actually doing here, and which steps could be automated. And that's the next thing that I would come to is there's lots and lots of tools and technology out there now that's wonderful at helping us shave time and effort from everyday tasks. That's both a blessing and a pitfall, because many a day have I spent till 3 o'clock in the morning looking at a new piece of technology, getting into the fine details of it, chucking all of my knowledge and expertise into it so I can make it fantastic, and then getting to 2:58 a.m. and realizing that it doesn't do something really, really crucial that I need it to do, and that all my effort's been wasted for the rest of the evening. That's not fun. But now and again, it works the other way, and I do that till 3 o'clock in the morning, and it works wonderfully and saves me 5 hours a week. So talk with your peers, find somebody else who's used that piece of software or that technology, or found ways of doing that thing that you're looking at, and make sure you're doing things in the most efficient capacity. Can you use an AI platform to kickstart your thinking, for example? If you spend a lot of time trying to ideate on things, maybe just doing that to begin with shaves off a lot of your time. And then the last thing I'd say is, you've done all of that, but you're still spending too long on doing that activity, or you're still just not enjoying it, or it's tiring you. Maybe you outsource it once you've got the revenue to do that. And that's where I sit, is in that kind of, I want people to give me something really efficiently. 20 minutes of your time, we'll record the video. I'm going to give you back so much content you don't need to worry about it for 6 weeks. There's a price tag that comes with that, but the smile that I get from people when I see them open their email and they've got all their files in there, it just makes it all worth it, because I know how much time I've saved them and how much better they're going to be able to extract the value from what they've said than they could ever do themselves. So that's my side of this conversation. But I know, Doris, energy is something that you talk to your clients a lot about, right?
Yeah, it is. Because everything to me is energy, right? That's what life is all about, And when you're a busy professional and you've got kids, right? People tend to think, well, I just need more time. Right? If I could have 30 hours in a day, right? Wouldn't it be amazing, right? But what happens is that we just fill up that time too, right? It's like you were saying, it's all about that efficient use of time. And what typically happens is that if you're a morning person like me, right? The whole 8 till 10, right? Lock me in a room, right? If I can just have no distractions, I can do whole day's work, right? In just those 2 hours. But what happens when you're in corporate? You've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, and then you've got another meeting at 10 o'clock, right? And then at 11 till 12. And then you have that slump, right? You have lunch, right? Then you have still got to do your day's work, but you've got another 2 meetings in the afternoon. And then you sit there like, I haven't even, and you've got a to-do list, right? Longer than, I've got short ass arms, right? But you know what I'm saying. And, and you're sitting there like, I haven't done anything. I ran out of time, right? And how often, right, does that happen? When you're in corporate, sitting there like, and then not only that, half the meetings I get into, you're sitting there like, why the hell?
We're going to have a meeting about a meeting. That's my favorite one. Let's have a meeting to set the agenda for the meeting for next week.
Yeah. And then, and actually, a lot of things happens because your manager or boss called it, and we feel as if we didn't have, the agency to turn around and say, why are you calling me into that meeting? I've got nothing to do. If I, and it's kind of like, experiment with that. And the whole energy is kind of like, lead yourself, right? We don't need other people to lead us. You're your own leader. You can lead your own life. We make decisions all the time. When you make decisions, you're the leader. It doesn't have to be in your job title, right? Lead yourself. Don't allow these other, the external environment or your bosses to kind of, okay, obviously, your appraisal and your work will, it's dependent on you fulfilling your contractual obligations and the projects that you have to be doing. Yeah, that's totally fair, right? But there's nothing to say that, you can't set boundaries and say, do you know what? This comes back to what we talked about, 20 minutes ago. It's like, communicate. Look, I am the most efficient during those key hours. So those hours are sandbox. You're not going to get into it. Whoever, I don't care who you are really, right? Unless it's an emergency and there's broken bones and blood, right? You're not getting in here. And I'm not doing it every day, but this is where I go in and be the creative bit and be productive and think about and strategize and all that kind of stuff. And actually, you probably don't need it every single day. It is just getting you that set up, whether that is once a week, once a month or whatever, to give you that, because, if your energy is, highest when it's in the mornings, because there's some people who are owls, right? I'm not one of them, right? By kind of 10 o'clock, I'm done, right? I'm literally brain dead. It's kind of like I go to sleep. If you can ask me anything that just requires a yes and no, I'm here. But if you want to have a deep conversation, yeah, can we schedule some time tomorrow morning for that, right? Because I'll be like, I'm done. My brain is now needs to go and have its 7 hours of sleep, right? But then that allows me to be really energized in the morning. It is finding your own natural rhythms. Typically people have, a slump after lunch, right? Do the boring tasks, right? The emails, and it sounds so simple, but it is simple. We tend to overcomplicate things. I'm like, oh, I haven't got more time. I have got to find more things to help me with it. Sometimes I find it's kind of stepping back and peering down because looking at it and just paring it back and say, what is some of this stuff that I'm doing that actually doesn't contribute to my goals? Right. When I was in corporate, I was one of the worst ones. Anything that went common. Yes. Right. Actually, all of that didn't contribute to my growth, whatever. I just thought I needed to be seen, to be helpful, to move on, right? But actually, it's kind of like, well, if all of that, there's a reason why no one's putting the hand up to be the fire warden of of this floor, when the fire alarm goes, or to be on the safety committee, or to be on the committee that's organizing, the Christmas party or the Easter party or Mother's Day or whatever, right? Because people are sitting there like, oh, I don't really, here I am. Yeah, I'll do it. And, pare it back and be really real with yourself. And ask yourself the hard question, say, if I do this task, is it going to contribute to my growth, to my next promotion, to whatever is the goal? When I take on this task, does it mean I can leave at 5 o'clock to go and pick up my child from nursery or school or whatever else, right? And have dinner with them. If it doesn't, you don't need anyone's permission. Whisper. People feel as if they feel they need to have permission. It is your life. You got to do it however which way you want. If everyone is zigging, you zag, right? Yes, it does require a bit of courage, right, to do that, especially if you've been like me, who have said yes to everything and, literally nearly led to burnout, but I didn't realize I was getting there, is to say, actually, because at the end of it, right, fast forward, you're going to live until we're 90, right, and you're looking back at that situation that you were in. Are you going to remember that? Are you going to think about, do you know what? Only put in extra 10 hours. If only I put in, none of us are going to be thinking that. All of you be thinking, oh my God, if I'd spent just less time at work and had more time with my kids or with my family or traveled or wherever, that's what we'd be saying, right? So this is, how I kind of help my clients to say, look, what's really important here, right? And actually, you don't have to do 20 things now, right? I use the WIN, W-I-N, what's important now, right? If you're really frazzled and overwhelmed, what's important now? What's the one thing that you just need to do? Just focus on one, like you said earlier, right? Just focus on one. Don't focus on 20, because when you focus on one, you get that done, right? If you focus on 20, your impact is so much less, and because your energy is spread over 20 things rather than focused on one, right? And, and then knowing what really energizes you, if there's people around you who are just draining your energy, right? Okay, you can't get rid of your colleagues, right? Limit the interaction, right? Or spend the time knowing that, okay, now I've got a bit more energy to kind of deal with that, or, steer the direction in a way that's going to be helpful, right? Or something, and we have to also just be compassionate with ourselves, right? We're very good at helping others, but this is where you get to turn that back to yourself and say, what is it that I need? Well, I don't need to be talking to that person right now because I'll end up either shouting or crying, and neither one is acceptable. I just need to go out and grab myself a coffee or walk around outside or whatever else. That is okay. You don't have to be working at your email, at your computer every single second of the day. And that's not how you're most productive. Most of the ideas actually come when you're just walking outside or you're just having a normal chat, just connecting with someone, right? And things come up. And like you said, well, record it. And I'm doing it. Suddenly, mid-conversation, there's something up. Hold on just 1 second. Just a great thought here, right? And I quickly either send myself a voice message, because I don't want to tap a message, just quickly, right? And then it's kind of, okay. And then you can carry on, right? It is okay to do things your way, right? And to manage your energy. And most of that actually, what I find is that I've changed what I do. It all starts with little habits, right? So I've started, the first thing that I do when I wake up and open my eyes is not check my phone. That simple thing has changed my life. not checking my phone until I have, done my meditation in the morning. I've done, I've closed, I have laid out, breakfast for the kids or whatever else, or I do a workout first thing in the morning. After all of that, that's when I'm ready to then get into kind of work mode. That's the first time. And that could be like a couple of hours after I've woken up. And that allows me to put my head into the positive space, right? To be really present in the morning, to kind of, it's that these little habits to be really present. And that's a skill that we can learn, right? It's not some people have it and some people don't. You can all learn it. It is as simple as when you're brushing your teeth, really notice I use an electric toothbrush, the vibration on my teeth, right? Around my gums. Just sit into that. Just 10 seconds. That's what we're asking. When you're in the shower, the water cascading down on you, just really just noticing the sensations, little things like that, right? And then before you know it, sit in the car and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, here's a steering wheel, or here's a stitching on a steering wheel, right? And use that to rub with all your senses and all that kind of stuff. That allows you to get present. And that will energize you because your brain is not running away like Heidi says, brain monkeys, right? All chattering, all thinking about a million things that you've got to do. You focus on the thing. And actually, when you learn to do that, actually what I find for me is that you can focus a lot better too, right? Because you go, no, I can focus on this. And, and let's not focus for a whole hour. You're not good at that, right? Do it 20 minutes, right? This is where the meeting after meeting after meeting is
4.5 minutes.
a lot of pace time. Wow.
I think, something you said there around your older self really resonated with something one of my clients released a video on, which was, at the end of it all, you've only got 2 people in your life that you ever need to impress. And that is 8-year-old you with all their dreams and aspirations and hopes for the future, and 80-year-old you who's lived it all. And do you have any regrets? Do you wish you'd done things differently, spent more time with your family, done less, done more of something? And really, that's the only 2 people we should ever really think about when we're making decisions. But I do think, to some of the things that you were saying there, Doris, I think it's quite hard to see some of these things from an internal perspective. I think we're so deeply rooted into our routines and our daily way of doing things and shoulds and how everybody else does things that it's really hard to even start to think about how we could do things differently. And I find that really, that's the point where I really need somebody else to kind of look at, I talk to people about, I overshare, let's be honest, I overshare with everything. So sometimes I find that oversharing really helps, because then somebody like yourself will come along and go, have you thought about just not doing that anymore? I go, no. But now that you've said it, yeah, let's try that. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But once you do that a few times, I find that it starts to become a bit more obvious. And I can go, oh, we don't need to do this way. We could do this that way, or we could divide and conquer, and you go to one thing and I'll go to the other thing. One of the things me and my wife got trapped into at one point was we both wanted to be there for both of our kids to do everything, which is lovely. It's nice when you can. It is nice to both be there. But it doesn't always work. And I found that we got to a point where we're dragging the 7-year-old along to the 1-year-old swimming class, and he didn't want to be there, and he was miserable because he was there and it was boring for him. And I'm in the pool with the baby, or she's in the pool with the baby, and the other one of us is kind of, it's nice to watch. It is nice to be there sometimes. But also, when we tried not doing that, actually found that the 7-year-old kind of entertains himself for an hour or so, and the other one manages to either get some rest or do some of the housework that we were rushing around doing when we get back home, or many of these other things. So there's 1,000,001 different ways of doing things. You've just got to be brave enough to find your own way of doing things, and that applies to business as well. So, the last section of the conversation today is around leveraging support and systems, and I've already kind of leaned into the fact that I systemize everything that I do as much as possible, and I started doing that a lot later than I should have. So I started doing that when I tried to outsource part of my business, and I did it in the moment because, oh my God, I'm going to get a VA to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to write down all my processes so that they can learn how to do this. And actually didn't really work out. I didn't really enjoy that experience, and I didn't carry on with that. But then fast forward to August of last year when my wife joined me in the business. She was made redundant, and I said, you know what? I don't want you going back into that job that you're not happy doing. You need a break from it at the very least, if not to do something else full time. And you need more freedom in your life because you're not happy doing what you're doing. And the fact that I'd already built out the system, that just made it really easy for me to step her through the processes that I'd been doing in small bunches, right? So not giving her everything at once, but being able to say, right, do this section. And when you can do that, then I can give you the next section. And it just meant it was really easy to outsource that work to my wife, which is a lot easier because she's in the house and I can physically show her how to do things. And I still roll my eyes when she's like, oh, I'm stuck. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and go over there and help you. But like, at the same time, it's incredibly helpful because like, we're both bought into the idea that the business needs to work. So I know that nobody's going to work harder than her on what we're doing. But likewise, if I was now to go back out to an outsourced partner, to somebody to help me do some of the things that I do, I've already got the processes built there. And as I'm writing them down, I can think about how to make them more efficient. What steps are necessary? Do I have to do this? Can I template that up? Can I make that into a template email? You know, can I get my CRM to send that email automatically, potentially, or things like that? But one of the things that we talked about before was, you know, kind of batching up creating content and why it helps you use your energy more effectively at the moment when you're able to. But actually, because you're not having to switch your brain from one activity to another, it allows you to be much more efficient, both in process, because you get into a habit of doing, right, I'm going to do this way, and kind of muscle memory takes over and you're in the process of doing it. Like any repetitive activity you do, once you've done it 4 or 5 times, it becomes much faster. It's the same for that, but also saves your brain energy because I'm not switching between doing this and then doing that, and doing this and then doing that. And I do that a lot, right? I do that a lot. So I try and minimize how much I do that. To-do list. It's a big thing for me, to-do list. And I have to have it written. Like that connection between thinking of something, writing it down, and being able to see and prioritize it at any moment. So what's priority this morning, if I don't get that task done, might not be a priority this afternoon for a reason, right? So having a set list of priorities isn't necessarily the best way of going about things, but having a list of jobs that we need to do, whether that's marketing, content creation, repurposing, whatever we're doing, you know what, actually, this afternoon, forget about that newsletter I was going to write this morning because it's not important. Something else has landed on my desk and I need to reprioritize. I need to move to this thing. And that's really important to be able to do that with freedom. And exploring, you know, I'm a big fan of using technology. So I use as few technologies as possible that do as much as possible and only get really proficient at using them. And there's so many people out there that have great technology at their fingertips and they just don't know how to use it. We label ourselves as I'm not very technically competent or I'm not very good at technology. It's crap. It just means you don't enjoy using that technology, right? All of us are capable of it. All of us. Bar none. You just need it explaining in a different way. You need it explaining by somebody who knows what they're doing. You need to find the right guide, the right video. I don't know. But getting 100% out of all of the business tools that you have. And ChatGPT is a great example, right? People think I mean, when I say ChatGPT is a great tool, they think that means you can go and just write your posts for LinkedIn in ChatGPT and it'll do all the work for you and you post them out. They look great. Except everybody can tell they're ChatGPT. They don't have your personality or your flavor or your experience or your opinions, and they're bland. What I mean by using ChatGPT is, hey, ChatGPT, here's who I am as a business. Here's how I go about my business. Here's who my customers are. Can you give me 20 topics I should create videos about? Okay, you've given me 20 topics. Now give me 5 talking points per video. Brilliant. Copy and paste that into your notes and talk about it organically. Right? Don't read it out. Don't script it, but use it as a... And that's what we've done for today's webinar, right? Doris and I brainstormed the other day, like, what we're going to do? Well, it needs to be a combination of content repurposing, because that's me, and parenting efficiency, which is Doris looking in on a business owner. And we combine the two. Right, ChatGPT, go. And it did. Came up with 10 titles. I sent an email to Doris. Which one's your favorite? Got a reply back. Brilliant. Put that back into ChatGPT. Give me a webinar. It gave me a webinar. We've tinkered with it. We've made it our own, but it's still substantially the same thing because it's got lots of context to know that's the sort of things that we should be covering, but we've made it our own. It took us, 20 minutes max, including email sending time to figure out what the webinar should be about. And here we are today recording something that's maybe not perfect, but does its job. And it's better than not releasing something and worrying about making it shiny and perfect. It's going to be. And to the point that I made at the beginning of the episode, the main purpose for me and Doris for doing this webinar is not that we think hundreds of thousands of people are going to watch this main webinar, right? If you're watching this at this point, you're probably one of the few that do. I'm not going to lie, it's B2B content. We don't have a lot of time in our lives. We don't have a lot of focus. We don't have a lot of energy. And we tend to spend that working on or looking at things that we know are going to give us value back. People who are watching this, I can guarantee that you're extremely interested in what we have to say. And more than likely, we probably know you. We've spoken to you, or we're about to, probably. We'll probably be in touch. That's cool. But for the rest of you, you're probably watching this as a clip. You're watching one of, 30 or 40 short micro moments where, Doris and I might have gone off on a bit of a tangent about something that we've discussed, and it might not have been in the original webinar plan, but it's still valuable. And we can still use that moment in context on its own as a valuable post or point. And we will, or I will, certainly. I can't speak. I think you will, Doris, but I know I will, because that's what I do. So think about how you can apply that to so many of your business activities. How can you do it in one block to make it efficient in terms of mental energy, maximize the impact of the tools that you have? And to your point as well, Doris, I think like that the clear boundaries between this is my work time and I cannot be disturbed at this moment in time, because I'll enjoy my work, right? Quite often I'll work through my dinner. I'll probably will today, right? I'll work through dinner, not because I don't want to have dinner, but because I'm more interested in what I'm doing and so excited about what I'm doing that the dinner doesn't seem very important. And I might grab something at like 2:30 in the afternoon quickly and shovel it down my face while I'm on my way to do the next thing. That's fine. Like, it's not ideal, I know, but if it works, it works. But find a way to block that time off and but if you're going to do it about business, you've got to do it for your family as well. And I get people, Heidi rolls her eyes, and in a nice way, she rolls her eyes because there's another collective meeting usually at 5 or 6 p.m. on an evening. And I've never joined one because that's my family time. And that's golden. That's my golden rule. 5 o'clock comes, no matter what I'm doing, I am downstairs maximum 5 o'clock, hopefully a bit before if I can manage it, because that's the time I spend with my kids and I help with the school run or take my son to football, whatever. 8:30 comes, it's fair game again. Like I can be at the laptop till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, not all the time. And I don't necessarily work every night. It's about rolling with what needs to be done right now and balancing what makes me happy and gives me energy with what doesn't, and making sure that I look after myself in the long run. So yes, I might have a week where I work till 11, 12 o'clock at night, 3 or 4 nights of that week, and I'm shattered by the end of that week. But usually it's followed by a week of, I've done all the work and client delivery that I needed to, and this week I'm not doing anything extra whatsoever, and I'm going to have a nice relaxing week, and I'm going to go and meet a friend for a coffee, and I'm going to go and work from the local coffee shop or whatever. Summer comes and I go and set the gazebo out in the garden, and I go and work from the laptop in the garden. It's lovely. I love it. Brilliant. Till next door's landscaper comes round. But that's how I deal with the support and systems and making sure that everything's boxed off. But I know, Doris, you're a big believer, and this is where I'm getting to with my business now, is I want to be able to, why are we doing the ironing when there's people out there who love ironing? I understand those people, but they'll love ironing and they're there to outsource those activities for us. I don't feed my lawn because I've got someone. This is real middle class stuff, right? Like I know, but at the same time, I know I can't get it right. The last time I tried to feed my lawn, I killed it. So somebody else who's an expert at that do that. Sometimes I have enough, money in the bank that I can say, right, you know what, I'm going to go and get the car cleaned by somebody who can do it far quicker than I can. I'm going to sit and play with my phone for 10 minutes whilst they clean the car because it's breathing space, right? So I know that you're big on the outsourcing from a life side of things as well as a business side. What's your thoughts on all that?
Versus business. I kind of look at it as a cohesive whole, right? Make work fit your life. Life is more important than work, right? So, and let's be clear about that, right? If you think the other way, you're wrong, right? I don't normally say to my clients that they're wrong, but, you work to live the life that you want, right? And, and the thing is that, with all the systems and all that kind of stuff, and the systems is kind of like, routines, right? Your daily routines, right? What you do first thing in the morning, for instance, not touching your mobile phone, right? For the first X number of, of hours in the morning or whatever else, or making these kind of, what you said, these golden times in your day, right? That's sacrosanct, right? No one is going to beat these because I know the kids are safely at school and, I haven't got any meetings. I'll book my meetings right. This is my 2 hours of creativity or 2 hours of batching or 2 hours of whatever it is that you want to do, and be okay with doing that, right? Because like you said, the whole multitasking thing is just waste time, right? And the one thing that we don't have more of, that we cannot create more of, is time. But if we can, really tune in and manage our own energy, that our energy cannot, be destroyed, right? It's just always there. It's just if you choose what's coming across as you were talking there. So just being really intentional and really understanding why you're doing what it is that you're doing, right? And for, similar to you and me, what it is I'm doing, being a life leadership coach, right? For high achieving professionals, is that I want my children to grow up and, when they step into the future, right? And go out in the world, they're going to have future bosses who are empathetic, who are understanding, and who are empowering. I've worked for some bosses that really were none of that, right? They were on the other side of the spectrum, right? They were very harsh, and it was all about, finding scapegoats and telling you that you were wrong or whatever else. They weren't there to uplift you. They were actually there to bring you down, right? I want that because I know what a lot of effort I'm putting into, my 2 horrid kids, right? I don't want some random person out in their future just be able to snap their fingers or say something wrong and to, for my kids to kind of wilt. I spent way too much time and effort. So my aim is to kind of like help their potential future bosses, to help them be more aware of, what they can do to help support the younger ones that are coming through, right? The next generations, right? And so when you have a really clear why, but what it is that you're doing, then that makes it easy, because it makes decision making easy. Does whatever I'm doing now, is that going to contribute to that why? No? Then why the hell am I doing it? And if you think that because this is a strategy to get to where it's okay, but you don't enjoy doing it, how about finding someone else that you're doing it? Because we don't all have to be fantastic all-rounders, right? We don't have to, when I was in corporate, I was like, you've got some weaknesses here, Doris. Let's go and find you some course or give you some experience to kind of up-level. Now I'm like, forget the weaknesses. I don't need to be an all-rounder. I just need to be shit hot at what it is I'm doing, right? And as long as I focus on my strengths, which means that I can most effectively help other people, right? Rather than saying, I'm really not very good at Excel. We're going to do something. Who cares, right? Because that's not, like we said, where my genius lies, right? So it's kind of being okay with that, finding your own systems to say, look, what is it? How this works for me, right? Because everyone is different, right? Just because Paul is doing that doesn't mean that I have to do it. Right? The thing is that we're more alike than we are different, right? So what most likely works for some people, you can try it, but then you put your own little tweak on it, right? Because I just like to sit. Some people like to do it in office. Other people like to work in a garden, whatever it is, right? But it's that kind of system side, like you said, 5 o'clock, I'm done. 5 till 8:30, that's family time, right? No one's going to come in here unless it's a mega emergency, right? But after that, I'm happy to give you some more time, right? It is having those, and this is kind of like, it's like systems, whether you think, I don't need a system or whatever. We all have these. These are all the habits that we have, right? It is in the morning, I go and have a cup of tea, I have a shower, whatever else, right? We all have these habits. This is kind of like a system, right? So when you know what it is that you're good at, and what helps you set up, good for the, for your next day, that's what you do. We had that conversation earlier in the week. It's like, I need to make sure that the water jug at the back of my coffee machine is full. Right. And I was laughing this morning because mine one ran out. And I just sat there, I was like, what the? I was like, oh yeah, the rise it'll all right. Remembering to put the water in the night before. So when you are then focusing on something else, you can just press button, everything's going to, instead of interrupting your routine to go do something different now, right? It made me giggle this morning. So it made me happy, right? So I sat there and was like, these are all the little things that if we're just conscious about it, right? And we do them every single day, then it becomes a habit and we don't need to think about it. Because how many of us now have to think about, okay, forget the whole, having an electric car or an automatic car rather than manual. You don't think about, oh, right, okay, then I have to shift into first gear. Right, okay, clutch has to come down. You just do it automatically. And it's kind of designing your life in such ways that work for you. And that's a system, right? No matter how you think about it, right? It's just, and then the whole support thing is kind of like, asking for help with whatever isn't a weakness, right? Especially in corporate, it was like asking for support. Really? Oh, that means you're not very good. How can I know everything, right? I can't know everything, right? And people would look at you. I'd had people look at me and well, obviously you're not very good then, right? If you have to ask for help. And you're like, I don't care for asking for help. In fact, my first thing always ask, give me your opinion. It's like, no, you have to have an opinion first. And I'm like, I kind of know where I think I want to go, but I want to have a more holistic view of this, right? And that was right default, right? Because Doris, you're not doing your job or whatever else, right? And I'm like, it's okay to ask for help because how often do you help others? You do it by instinct. You just say yes. And this is kind of like, for me, asking for help is giving other people that experience, that nice feeling that you get from helping others, right? Don't expect anything in return, right? It is never, oh, I help you once, now you owe me, right? If that's the way that you think about it, don't ask for help, right? It is, I'm helping you because I think I can, and it's not a big thing. If you don't ask for help, you're stopping others from receiving that same feeling, right? So it's all that kindness thing, but it's hard because especially when you've been ingrained, the brain monkeys are saying, when you ask for help, you are not very good, and this is why you don't get this and this is why you didn't get that. It is, no, I'm asking for help because I know it can be more efficient so that I can have more time focused on this, on where my zone of genius, so I can be more productive and more effective. And other people, their zone of genius might be helping with the childcare, which is why we send our kids to school, right? We send them to nursery, right? I couldn't be a teacher. Homeschooling kids, my worst nightmare. I'd kill 2 kids before I taught them anything, but it's that kind of, what's the system that works for you? And not having the courage, when something feels uncomfortable, there is probably some energy stuck there with the thoughts of, fear, typically, steeped in fear that says, well, yeah, if you do this, other people will look at this. Do you really care that much about the person who's judgment about you? If you don't, then why do you care? It's that kind of, you're letting go. Do what you feel is right for you, because what feels right for you and makes you happy is good for you and the people around you. You don't have to do all, right? You can't do all if that's what you choose to do. Don't do it out of obligation. Don't do it because I've always done it like this and I've always said yes. You can always change your mind, right? The mind is ours, and the more control and ownership we give it, right? What is ours, the more powerful and the more effective we can be, right? Instead of waiting for, other people to say that this, to give us permission or something, And, and this is, I don't know whether that is with age or whatever else, but I really care much less now about what other people think, right? Maybe that's a journey that people will have to get through, right? But it's kind of really, what comes to me is just kind of taking ownership of me. How about I take care of me for you and you take care of yourself for me, right? Then I'm not imposing myself on you. I'm not relying on you to make me happy. I'm just going to make myself happy, right? That means you don't need to worry about that.
I love it. So much to take away from what's, and I warned you in advance, right? Everybody watching along, I warned you in advance. There are going to be so many things you're going to want to take away from today. So before we wrap up, a quick recap of what we've covered. So balance is pretty much a myth, right? Focus on integration, not perfecting how you want to live your life. Like making the most of it in the moment, whatever the needs are at that time, and amending that and evolving that as things move on. Energy is the most valuable resource, not time, right? So protect your energy more than you protect your time. Protect your time as well, also. And importantly, like leverage the systems and support that you have available. So if you want to be the most effective and efficient at what you're doing, you want to have time and energy for other things. To do that, you need to get good at the things that you already do. Become productive at them, become efficient at them. Stop putting off learning how to do them or learning how to use them, and make the most of the people and services and support around you in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Stop worrying about how you're going to be perceived, and do what's necessary for you and your happiness and your family's happiness and your business's success. Here's what I want you to do next. If you're watching along, I want you to take just one thing that we mentioned in today's session and apply it in the next 24 hours, the next day. Think about just one thing that you can make a change with. It might be kind of blocking out a small window for focused work, automating a task. I don't know. If you're brave enough, let go of some guilt. But small steps can lead to a big change. You know, we talk about 1% better every day. That's what I want people to take away from the day. If you try to apply everything, you're probably going to fail. Your head's going to be a mess. Think of the thing that you thought was the most change making for you and do that one thing. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be sharing all the snippets and clips from today's conversation. So if you have watched along and you just think, that's great, but there was so much there that I don't know what I can go away and do. Rather than you watch the episode again, don't. Follow us on LinkedIn and you'll see the clips come out. As you watch the clips, try and do that one thing, because there's lots and lots of value to be taken away from the day. And I'd like to think my goal is I want people like yourself who are watching along to just be happier doing what they do.
More fun.
It's simple, right? Like it's life doesn't have to be this thing that we wish away until it's too late and we can't get it back again. Live in the moment, as you said, Doris. Like, find out where you are right now and spend some more time doing that. Thank you very much for coming along, being an excellent guest, Doris. I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat, and clearly we can talk for hours and hours and hours. I think I say this on every webinar I do. I can talk for hours and hours, definitely. It's nice to meet somebody who matches my energy.
That's a challenge you're willing to accept.
I don't know. I think you've proved it. I think you've got it. You've got it in the bag. I'll give you it. Fantastic. We might do this again sometime. Thank you very much for being a guest, and thank you at home for watching along and enjoying the content. Give us a line, drop us comments, email us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the show and anything else you'd like to see us cover or do more of. The door's open. We're open for suggestions. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.